the last time we had a class? Can anyone remind me of what I taught you the last time we had a class?
We talked about part of speech.
Where did we stop? Okay, basically without wasting our time. Pronoun, okay, pronoun. So without wasting our time, we'll proceed from where we stopped, and then we'll continue from there. From there. Host, can you please let me share my screen? Host, I would like to share my screen now.
You can now, you can.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so basically, the last time we had our class talking about pronouns, and then we started talking from definition of pronouns, which I guess we started here. Yeah, the definition of pronouns, and then we moved up to the types of pronouns that we have. We talked about relative pronouns, and we said they are the ones that relate to a part of sentence to another. Yeah, we talked about possessive, that is showing possession of something. Now, for instance, if I say Pius' book, I can say his book. If I say the book is my book, I can use my book and replace it with mine. So I can also say the book is mine. So mine there is a possessive pronoun, showing the possession of a noun. And then because we say basically, pronouns are always used to replace a noun to avoid repetition of the same noun. To avoid the repetition of the same noun.
So that's why
Alice, can you please work on the background noise? It's distracting the class. Yeah, you can please mute yourself, Alice, so that we can have decorum in the class, please. Alice? Okay, thank you very much. So sorry for that. So I was talking about the possessive pronoun, and I said the possessive pronoun are used to replace the possessive nouns. And I said, for instance, if I say the book is my book, so for me to replace my book, I can just put mine there and I have the book is mine. So going on to reflexive pronoun, we said reflexive pronoun will always revert on the subject of a sentence or object that is referring to the same subject that is trying to call itself back to the subject that has been used. For instance, I can say, I did the work. If I want to make an emphasis on myself doing the work, I can just say, I did the work myself. Myself there is reverting on I that I've used as the subject. Moving on quickly, we're talking about demonstrative pronoun. These are pronouns that are used to point out specific objects. Specific objects. We have this for something that is close to us and that for something that is far away from us. Both these and that are singular, but the plural form of those two that I've mentioned are these and that. So the singular is this, the plural is this. And for that, the singular is that, the plural is those. So when you have this, we have these, we have that, we have those. And that is how you use them. So if you want to identify a specific object, you can say this book, if it is closer to you. Or you want to refer to a book that is far away from you, you say that book. And if you have many books that are very close to you and you want to refer to them, you can say these books. And if the books are far away from you, you point to them from afar and you say those books. So let's move on to interrogative pronouns. Interrogative pronouns are used to ask questions. Who, what, when, why, and where. You can see who is there. Who there is an interrogative pronoun starting a question. What are you doing there? What is that? These are pronouns that we use to commence questions anytime we have to ask them. And then thirdly, we have the indefinite pronouns. They are pronouns that do not refer to any particular person, place, or thing. That is, as a matter of fact, they can be used to identify anything that we are not being specific about. Someone, somebody, somewhere, something, anyone, anybody, anywhere. All these are not used to specify, unlike the demonstrative pronoun that we can use or when we talk about definite articles. So these pronouns, they can just be used for things that we cannot identify specifically. So if I say someone, someone is not anybody. But if I said Tolu did this job, Tolu has been identified as the person who did the job. But if I said someone did the job, it means I don't know who has done the job specifically. I'm just trying to pick it at random who has done the job. Somebody, somewhere. I am going somewhere. If I tell anybody I am going somewhere, it means I did not identify the specific place I am going. Something, anyone, anybody, anywhere. So all of these pronouns are used for places, things, and persons that are not identified specifically. Moving on from there, we have the personal pronouns. These pronouns are used to substitute proper names. You know, when we're talking about nouns, we call some type of nouns proper nouns. These are specific names of persons, places, and things. So we can have an example. Damilola is my name. It's a proper noun. If I'm going to replace that with a personal pronoun, I will use it as I. Now, using it as I means that I have replaced a proper noun with a personal pronoun. So that is how you use your personal pronoun. So you use I for the first person, you for the second person, he or she or it for the third person. All these three that I've mentioned are all singular. By the time we want to move to the plural aspect of them, we can have we as the plural for I, they as the plural for he or she or it, and you will always be you. So which means you can have you as singular, and at the same time, you can have you as plural. However, all these that I've mentioned are used at the subject position. And as they are used at the subject position, we can have them at the object position too. So me will be the object position for I. You will be the object position for you. Him, her, or it will be the object position for he, she, or it. Us will be the object position for we. You will be the object position for you in the plural section. And them will be the object position for they. So these are how you use your personal pronouns, be it at the subject position or at the object position. You will see that beneath my personal pronouns, I have the subject pronouns and the object pronouns, just as I have explained them. So your subject pronouns are used at the beginning of your sentences, while the object pronouns are used at the end of your sentences. Subjects are the actor of an action in a sentence, while your objects are the receiver of the action done by the subjects in a sentence. Now, reciprocal pronouns, these are used to express mutual relationship between two things or two persons. So we have just two of them. We have each other and one another. Each other and one another. Now, when you're talking about two persons, you use each other. When you're talking about three or more persons, you use one another. So if I have Tade and Tolu, I can say Tade and Tolu love each other. Tade and Tolu love each other. But if I have Tade, Tolu, and Timi, I can say Tade, Tolu, and Timi love one another. Now, so don't forget that reciprocal pronouns are used for mutual relationship. So when you are using two persons, in your sentence and you want to use a reciprocal pronoun for them, you use each other. But if you are using more than two persons, maybe from three upward, then you use one another, just as I gave in the example. Now, away from pronouns, we talk about adjectives. An adjective is a word that tells us more about a noun. So basically, what an adjective does as a part of speech. It does. It describes a noun. It gives us more information, a noun. It gives us a better explanation. It explicitly tells us more about a noun. So if I say, for instance, a beautiful girl, girl there is my noun. But I want to know the type of girl we are referring to. Beautiful there is telling us about the type of girl. So beautiful there is an adjective describing girl, which is what? A noun. And it is said that an adjective will always come or often come before a noun. It always comes before the noun it is describing. However, though I did not list it here, we have two types of adjectives. We have the attributive adjective and we have a predicative adjective. We have the attributive adjective and we have a predicative adjective. So now if you look at my examples, I have the big dog was hungry. The big dog was hungry. Now the first word there embodying and that has the subscript one, big, is describing the dog. It is describing the dog, so it is an adjective. And because it is, you have it before the noun, it is giving us the attributes of the noun that we are using in the sentence. So that is an example of an attributive adjective, an attributive adjective. But any adjective that comes after your verb to be or comes after a verb in a sentence, and you realize that there is no other noun after such adjective, we call them predicative adjective. Basically, if you want to describe or you want to divide a sentence into two parts, traditionally we say a sentence is divided into subjects and predicates. So if you have your subject as your noun and everything before your verb and every other thing after it will be your predicate. So any adjective that you have in the predicate section is called a predicative adjective. It is called what? A predicative adjective. So just as we said, a noun can come, an adjective that comes before a noun in a sentence is called an attributive adjective. But that comes after a verb in a sentence is called a predicative adjective. So moving on from there, we are getting to the powerhouse. Basically, in the English language, we cannot write or form a complete sentence without having a verb in it. As a matter of fact, the verb is the only part of speech that is obligatory. That is, if you write a sentence and there is no verb in it, you have either written an incomplete sentence or you have written a phrase. Now, basically, moving on from there, we can also say that though there are some verbs that you can use in your sentences, and by the time you use them, we can identify them as verbs, but they will not be called in as verbs that are action. They will not be seen as action verbs in your sentence until you make them a finite verb. Now, a finite verb is a verb that can change by person, by tense, and by number. When I mean by person, for instance, if I say, I love a dog, I is my subject, the verb there, love, is a finite verb, and the dog is my object. Now, for me to prove that the verb that I've used in that sentence is a finite verb, if I change the subject, I, from the first person pronoun into another person, maybe second person pronoun or third person pronoun, and the form of the verb love that I've used changes to work with the concord rules that it has been placed into, we know that verb is a finite verb. So if I replace I with E, I will say he loves the dog. It would be wrong for me to say I love the dog and I proceed to say he loved the dog. No. Love will only work with I according to the rules of concord. Immediately I change my subject from I to E. There is a rule backing the type of subject that I've used as the second person pronoun. It changes from love to loves. So it means that verb that I've used there is a finite verb because it can change from one person to another, working on the rules and conforming with the rules of concord. Now, if for instance, if I say, I love to go to the cinema, I love to go to the cinema, if I try to change the person used in that sentence, that is my subject, and I change it to he, you realize that what we'll have is he loves to go to the cinema. Though in that second sentence, I have two verbs. One of them is in the definite, and the other one is in the infinitive. Or I can say one of them is in the finite form, and the other one is in the infinite form. So to go there is in the infinitive form. So it means that love is a finite verb, and to go is found in the infinitive form. So a verb is an action word. Anytime there is an action in a sentence, it is a verb you have used. It may be an occurrence, it may be a state of being, or talking about an existence. So it is, however, required that in every sentence that you write, there must be a verb. And the basic form of every verb is known as the infinitive form. So if I have go, the base form of go is to go. If I have love, the base form of love is to love, and every other type of verbs that you have in English language. Moving up from there, we can see the major categories of verbs. Basically, there are some other school of thought that believe that we don't have these categories, but for us to have a better understanding of how we use verbs in the English language, I would prefer to say that we have two major categories. We have the auxiliary verbs and the lexical verbs. But now we're going to discuss the auxiliary verbs. The auxiliary verbs are divided into two. We have the modal auxiliary. These are verbs that give a sentence a specific mood. That is, each type of verb that we call a modal verb has a modus operandi of working. It has a meaning carried in itself. For instance, can shows possibility, capacity, ability. So if I tell someone I can do this, it means I have the ability and capacity to do that. If I say I may do this, it means there's a kind of doubting mood on that. It means that action or that event may actually come to pass or may not come to pass, because it is based on possibility of affirming it coming to pass or not coming to pass. And it would be wrong for me to say that I want to show capacity and I use the verb may. So take, for instance, I want to tell somebody that I have the capacity to do something, and then I go ahead and say I may do it. It sends a wrong message to the person. So each of these verbs, can, may, shall, must, will, dare, ought, need, all of these verbs, they carry a meaning of their own. And as such, they put your sentence into a specific mood. So anytime you use them in a sentence, they carry a mood with them. Now, however, we call them auxiliary verbs because you cannot use them alone in the sentence. They are called auxiliary because they have to assist another verb. They are called auxiliary because they have to help a verb. For instance, you may just try it. I may want to put it a test to you, that you try to form a sentence and use only the verb can in it. You realize that you will not form a good sentence. Maybe you say, I can the book, I can the assignment, I can the work. You realize that everything you are saying or everything you're writing is ungrammatical or incomplete. But if I say, I can do the work, now, can there is my auxiliary verb, and there is another verb that it is assisting, and that is do. So do there will represent a lexical verb, which we'll talk about later, and can will be an auxiliary verb. So those are the first part of the categories of the auxiliary verb. The second one are the non-modal auxiliaries. Some will say that these are verbs, they are also called auxiliaries, and they are helpful verbs, that they work with other verbs to change the meaning of a sentence. A helpful verb combines with a main verb, just as I said earlier. Another word for main verb is the auxiliary verb, in order to accomplish different goals. Now, basically, for the non-modal, we have just three of them. We have the be, we have the have, and we have the do. The basically, I want us to know that for the non-modal verbs, you can use them both as auxiliary verbs and as lexical verbs or main verbs. You can use them as auxiliary verbs and you can use them as main verbs in your sentences. So I can say, I have to do the job. I can say, I have to do the job. And now, have there, I have used it as an auxiliary verb. But if I bring on have as a lexical or a main verb, I can say, I have a book. Now, the same have that I have used as an auxiliary verb in my first sentence, I have gone ahead to use it as a lexical or a main verb. So that is why these ones are called non-modal, because they don't actually affect the mood. They only combine their functions with the main verbs in a sentence to show their functionalities. They combine their functions with a main verb in a sentence to accomplish a goal. So if you have them in a sentence, you can either have them as a main verb or you have them as an auxiliary verb. That is that with our non-modal auxiliary. And then we'll say the second category is the main verb. Now the main verb, these are all other verbs other than the auxiliary verbs. Don't forget, we have two auxiliary verbs. We have the modal auxiliary verbs that speaks about a specific mood in our sentences, and we have the non-modal auxiliary verbs that assist the main verb in accomplishing a goal, or they can be used as a main verb as the case arises. But for our main verb, every other type of verb after removing your auxiliary verbs are called the main verbs. So from your run to your move to your teach to your kick and all sorts of other verbs, they are the main verbs. So that is that with verbs. And proceeding from there, let's go to another interesting part of speech, and that is the adverb. Now, an adverb is a word or a phrase that modifies or qualifies an adjective. It can modify or qualify a verb or other parts or group of words. That is, it can qualify an adjective, it can qualify a verb, it can qualify an adverb or other part of speech that needs an adverb to express the meaning. And sometimes they are used expressly to talk about a relation of place, a relation of time, relation of circumstances, relation of manner, relation of cause, and relation of degree. So we can say that we have an adverb of place, we can have an adverb of time, we can have an adverb of manner, we can have an adverb of cause, we can have an adverb of degree. So it depends on how you want to use them in your sentences. If I say she walks gracefully, beautifully, she walks gracefully, beautifully. Gracefully there is that verb, sorry, that adverb that is trying to modify beautifully. I can say she walks beautifully. I can say she walks beautifully. Now, but saying she walks gracefully, gracefully there is trying to modify or appreciate the adverb beautifully. So that is how you use them. Sometimes you can use an adverb of manner and say she danced very well. Danced very well. How did she dance? She danced very well. You can use that also as an adverb of degree to tell us the intensity of how she danced, using the word well in it. So sometime, so you can use them. Because of our time, I would like to rush through it. So it depends on what time, what manner, what cause, or what degree you want to employ into your sentence. But don't forget that an adverb can be used to modify an adjective, it can be used to modify a verb, but it can be used to modify an adverb of its such or other type, as we have them in English language. So proceeding from there, the seventh part of speech I want to talk about is the preposition. The preposition, however, is a word that is used to link nouns, pronouns, or phrases to other words within a sentence. They act to connect people, object, time, and location of a sentence. It shows direction, time, place, location, spatial relationship, or to introduce an adjective. Examples of them are, we have in, we have at, we have on, we have off, and we have to. I can say, I am going to the moon. I am going to the moon. Showing relationship between my movement and my destination. The action towards a destination. Going towards the moon. That is it. I can say the book is on the table. The book is on the table. I'm showing the relationship between the book and the position it is around the table, or the relationship it has with the table. So the book is placed on the table. That is a place on the table. So that what we're saying is that a preposition, is used to show relationship between a part of a sentence and another part of a sentence. And let me add to it that after the noun, the preposition is the part of speech that has the largest item in the English language. There are several prepositions that we have, and as a matter of fact, we may not finish counting all of them. And there are some of them that while we are using them, they have been categorized into different other parts, such that we can use. Alice, can you please mute so that you disturb the class? Thank you for that. So as I was saying, the preposition, we have so much categorized the preposition such that they can be used as conjunctions, they can be used as adverbs. They have like about 3 or 4 functions in the English language. So to see. Moving on from there to the 8th part of speech, we have the conjunction. The conjunction. A conjunction is the part of speech or word class that serves to connect words, phrases, or clauses in a sentence. Now, I want you to know that a conjunction is used to connect two parts of speech that are of the same grammatical function or the same grammatical placement. Conjunctions are used to connect or combine two parts of speech that are of the same grammatical function or the same grammatical placement. Now, I cannot use a conjunction to join a noun and an adjective. It's impossible. I cannot use an adjective, a conjunction to join a noun and a preposition. It's not possible. So if I'm going to use a conjunction, I can only use a conjunction to join a noun and a noun, an adjective and an adjective, a verb and a verb, an adverb and an adverb, or a preposition and a preposition, if we can have something like that. But basically, I know that we can use a conjunction to join a noun and a noun, an adjective and an adjective, an adverb and an adverb. So I can say Tade and Tolu, and there is a conjunction joining two nouns together. And there is a conjunction joining two nouns together. I can say Tolu is beautiful and pompous. Tolu is beautiful and pompous. Beautiful and pompous there are adjectives. And then I have used and to join those two adjectives in relation to Tolu. So we have several types of them in the English language. We have and, we have but, we have for, we have or, we have no, we have so, and we have yet. And then basically there is a mnemonic that we use for conjunctions. That mnemonic is fanboys. F-A-N-B-O-Y-S. F stands for, A stands for and, N stands for no, B stands for but, O stands for or, Y stands for yet, and S stands for so. So if you want to talk about conjunction sometimes and you forget, just put it in your head, fanboys. F stands for, A stands for and, N stands for no, B stands for but, O stands for or, Y stands for yet, and S stands for so. So that is fanboys. That is a collection of conjunctions that we have. But there are some other types of conjunctions that we have. And basically, when I told you the other time, when we were having the class the other time, I told you, I said we can have a preposition being used as a conjunction. So there are some prepositions that can be brought in as conjunction. These are the ones that we use when we are trying to form a subordinate clause in our sentences. So sometimes when you have a subordinate clause, you use a preposition sometimes to form your subordinate clause in your sentence. And sometimes they are called subordinating conjunction or the subordinate conjunction. So moving on from there quickly, we go to interjection. Now, for interjection, it is a word or phrase or sentence that expresses emotion, meaning, or feeling, as we can have them in our various expressions or sentences. These emotions will proceed with punctuation marks, which are most often but not always exclamation points. Now, what we'll say there is this. Now, sometimes, now, I want to bring something to our notes here. Now, in the English language, a particular school of thought believes that when we talk, we can have our statements in two ways. It is either we have made a speech or what we have said can be written. However, what we have said can be taken based on speech, and whatsoever we have written can be taken based on what has been written. So there's a particular school of thought that believes that we can have part of speech and we can have word classes. But basically, because we want to talk about part of speech, we may not want to digress into the word classes for now. So now, this ninth part of speech, the interjection, shows emotion. Maybe sudden emotion, something that happens to you suddenly, or you want to express something emotionally. For instance, if I want to talk in a depressed mood or tone, there is a way I write it, or let me say there's a way I say it, that if it must be written or it must be transcribed, there must be something to show that there's a particular emotion attached to that statement while it was written or while it was said. So for instance, look at the example I gave. Rats, my paper is late. Now, what happened there was that maybe the person has left a particular paper in his room or in his compartment, and then the rats had come there to make a feast on the paper. And then he realized that he or she realized that the paper is gone or cannot be used again or has become so useless. So you can use this sentence. Now, rats there shows those agents that have done the adverb. Oh, rats, my paper is late. That is, my paper is gone. Now, the rats there with the exclamation mark shows that something is wrong with the statement. However, sometimes when we are happy, we can use interjection. If I say, hooray, we made it out of the COVID-19. Now, fine. We can use hooray there as what? As our emotion, to represent our emotion, to show that we were happy. So by the time you are writing it, to put an exclamation mark to show that, okay, fine, there is an interjection when you were talking or when you were making the speech. So that is that about all the parts of speech that we have. So basically, I want to have a run through of all we have said since the beginning of this class, and maybe in a subsequent class, we move to another topic entirely. So we talked about the noun, and we said the noun, we began with the determiner, and we said the determiner are words that are used to identify the beginning of a sentence. They are used at the beginning of a sentence, and they are always used at the beginning of a noun phrase. From there, we move on to, our nouns, and we said the noun is the name of a person, animal, place, or thing. And then I remember I said in the last class that anything that has a name is called a noun. Anything whatsoever, in as much as you can give a name to that thing, it is called a noun. And proceeding from there, we move on to the pronouns. We said the pronouns are used to replace a noun to avoid continuous repetition of the same noun in our sentences. That is what we have the pronoun as. Moving on from there, we talked about the adjective, and we said the adjectives are used to describe or modify a noun. So which means in our sentences, the major assignment an adjective has is to describe, to give us more information, or to explicitly tell us more about a noun. And moving on from there, we moved on to the verb. And I remember I told us that the verb is the powerhouse of every sentence you have written. Every sentence you have written. So you can hardly write a sentence in the English language without putting a verb in it. If you try writing a sentence without a verb in it, I can tell you that you have written just a phrase. And then I remember that I told us there are two types of verbs that can be used in a sentence to show that what you have written is either a clause or a sentence or a phrase. Basically, some clauses are referred to as sentences. For instance, you can use a clause to represent a simple sentence. So a clause, in other words, can mean a sentence as used for our expression or based on what we are trying to express. But anything that you have written and there is no finite verb in it, or as the source of what your verb may be coming from, maybe we can say that what you have written is a phrase and not a clause or a sentence. And then we said a finite verb is that verb that can change in form of person, can change in form of tense, and can change in form of number. So which means if you change your person from first person to second person or third person, either singular or plural, your finite verb must change with that. If you talk about the verb in tenses, it means you can change the verb successfully from either the past tense to the present tense and from the present tense to future tense. If the verb can successfully change its form, it is a finite verb. And basically on numbers, if you can change from first person singular to first person plural, second person singular to second person plural, or third person singular to third person plural, without changing the understanding or the meaning the sentence carries, it means that you have been able to successfully use. But if you use a verb, one person to another, or from a particular, you realize that the verb is a non-finite adjective verb. Moving on quickly, we also discussed and said an adverb is that is used to modify or qualify an adjective, a verb, and other adverbs or any other word that may need it in things you are trying to express or you are writing. And then we said we have an adverb of place, of time, of circumstance, of manner, of, and proceeding from there we talk preposition. And we said the preposition is a link between nouns and pronouns and other part of the sentence. So which means I can have a link between a verb and a noun. I can have a link between a pronoun and a noun as used in a sentence. So some of those things that we can use there are prepositions. We have example as in. I can say I am in the bank. I can say I am at the bank. I can say I am sitting on the table. I am sitting on the chair. Now we show the relationship between the noun and another noun. We can use to show relationship between, linkage of actions or activities between two nouns, between two pronouns or other parts of speech. And proceeding from there, we also talked about conjunction. We said these conjunctions are used to join two parts of speech that are the same grammatical category or the same grammatical placement. You use them to join nouns and nouns, verbs and verbs, pronouns and pronouns, and the likes like that. Moving on from that quickly, we talked about interjection, which was the last one that we explained, and we said they are used to show emotions. So that is the end of this class today. So my assignment will be that for all the parts of speech that we have explained, you will give 5 examples as used in sentences. So it means for now, you write 5 sentences, you use nouns in them, or when you write your sentence, use nouns in them, and then identify the nouns you have used. And then you move on to pronouns, you move on to verbs, you move on to adjectives, and so on, all through to interjection. So subsequently, when we meet in the other class, we'll talk much about some of this part of speech, or we'll bring in another topic so that we can enjoy